that these questions will come in from. We have questions on friendship. We have questions on dating and relationships. We have questions on singleness. So the very first question is going to be on friendship. All right, so here's how the question goes. I find it hard to be myself when getting to know new people. With all the worries about COVID, interpersonal interaction feels even more awkward. Any suggestions for how to overcome this? How can I get better at making and maintaining friendships?
Oh, so we're going first?
Let's go, Felix, get in there.
I wasn't sure, like, can't really
Jump
tell.
in, Dave, jump in, yeah.
Ooh, that's a difficult question in terms of making and maintaining friendships. I think one of the biggest things is that oftentimes we can get into our own way. Like, we can set up scenarios into our heads before they actually play out as to why a certain friendship won't work out, or if I say something, they're going to think X, Y, and Z. And so we give people roles without allowing them to be themselves and prove that they can be whatever more or less than you are expecting. And I think if we can get out of our own way sometimes, whether that be because of fear or past hurt or unmet expectations in some other areas that we're projecting onto someone else, if we can get out of our way, sometimes we can find new meaningful relationships. I know when I first joined ENC, I was part of this small group, and my first thought of them was that they were kind of corny, to be honest with you. I'm like, these guys are cheesy, like they like, it's not really real here. We're just kind of like, and then we started talking about real things, like struggles with pornography and lust and all that stuff. And I'm like, wow, this has been like, and it was one of the most important friend groups that I had in my college experience. And before that, I had already played a scenario where I'd given them roles and said, this is who you are. And that turned out to be completely untrue. So I think the first step is trying to getting out of your way, and identifying why you're getting in your way as well. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is it fear or whatever those things are?
And sometimes it just takes that one person to be like open and to be willing to put themselves out there to make other people feel comfortable enough to put themselves out there too. So sometimes you just got to be that person.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I also think embrace the awkwardness. I think building new friendships takes time. And so it's okay that it doesn't feel as organic in the beginning, And so I think that it's important to kind of embrace that and to get comfortable, but knowing that it just takes time. So I think that's kind of a tip in terms of kind of overcoming it, is by kind of just acknowledging what's going on. But also in terms of making and maintaining, I can talk a little bit about maintaining if someone wants to talk about more like making friends. But I think maintaining, I know this is something I had to be challenged about, because I'm honestly the type of person, I don't need to talk to my friends every day. I'm good. I love y'all. I'll reach out. But if it were up to me, I don't need to have that interaction constantly. However, I recognize that some of my friends do need that and need me to reach out to let them know that I care about them. So I'm going to meet that. I'm going to step outside of what's natural to me to maintain that friendship. So it's just being intentional, reaching out, checking in. Hey, how are you doing? Hey, let's actually hang out. I was actually talking or texting with a few friends who our schedules are so crazy. Even though we live in Philly, we only hang out every couple of months, but we have that intentionality of let's set a date. We're going to hang out and catch up. So, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I think intentional is like the kind of word you're looking for, because if you feel awkward, chances are they feel awkward. So, just make your life's mission to be not weird, and then be intentional. Like, just say hi. We were out on campus. We have two rules. I mean, love God, that's assumed. Then the second one is love people, and then don't be weird, right? Because we're just going to go for it. So that has to be on the board. Don't be weird. You know, I think people are way more open than we give them credit for. So I love what Dave said in terms of just let them define themselves. Don't make assumptions, just ask them, right? I'm a huge fan. You guys hang around me for more than 2 minutes, you're gonna hear me say like ask questions. So, hey, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? And then kind of build from there. And people are way more open than you give them credit for. Like we went out last week and we're talking to people on campus about God and just praying for them. I mean, just total strangers. So, you know, every time you talk to a total stranger, especially during the pandemic, it's like, oh man, like, are they going to be freaked out? You know, they can't even see my face. I can't see their face. But as soon as you strike up a conversation, you realize, oh, this is just a human being. You know, I'll just ask them, hey, what's going on in your life? How can I be praying for you? And then just dive right in. So if we could have a deep spiritual conversation in 30 seconds, you know, you can surely get to know somebody and just ask them about their life and what they're interested in. So I'd say just break the ice, you know, make it about them. It's not a formal interview, but just, you know, everybody's favorite subject is themselves. So just ask them about themselves and, you know, and then give it time to flourish. So, yeah.
That's true. When my mom was younger, she said her dad would tell her, it's easy to make friends. Just go, put out your hand. My name is Jasmine. What's your name? And when you're younger, it sounds like, ew, that's weird. Ew, people are going to reject me. But the older you get, it's like, I really just got to do that.
Jazz, it's like, you know, once you turn 6 or 8, you know, right in that phase where you want to be cool, that it just gets really hard. And then you slowly climb out of that as an adult. And you're like, oh, this is stupid easy. I just go up and say hi. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I moved around a lot, so I had to do that, you know, making new friends. I couldn't be, you know, hesitant or shy. So I just had to go for it. And I made friends. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Other thing is that don't put so much pressure on meeting somebody. Like some people you're just not gonna hit it off with. Hey, it's gonna happen, you know. Not everybody's gonna like you. So, you know, be willing to meet a bunch of people and then realize out of that bunch of people, if you meet 10, you're probably really gonna hit it off with 3. You can tolerate 6, and then one person you're like, I'll pray for them, you know.
All right, that was wow. We're already starting with the heat. I'm just gonna run over the few things that I was able to pick up. It says the first one, which is beautiful, is let go of the expectations. You know, preconceived scenarios or premeditated things that you had thought or what you had already envisioned of people. Let go of that. You know, that will make it easier for you to make friends. And then also embrace the awkwardness. You know, it's gonna be awkward in the start. Learn to embrace that. It will grow with time. Make your life's mission not to be weird. Thanks, Philly. Do not be weird. That's part of my ENC. And everyone's favorite topic is themselves. People like to talk about themselves and do not put so much pressure on meeting somebody. So thanks, guys. Thanks for answering that question. Those answers were phenomenal. The next question that we have that is also on friendship is, how do I get over being upset without ignoring my feelings about the situation?
And just for context for Dave and Jazz, we did a whole week on conflict. So, you know, how do we handle conflict in friendship? So that's the context. Since I'm talking, I'll take a stab at it. I think you have to figure out if it's a you issue or a them issue. And sometimes it's both, but sometimes what seems like a them issue is actually 10% them and 90% you. And so you got to really, you know, again, you got to just own your own life. Your emotions are your dealings. So you don't want to give away that power to somebody else and then take on this victim perspective or the, you know, like I'm powerless. So you always have a choice on how you react. You can always react graciously, even when you've been wronged. You can always choose to forgive when you've been wronged, right? There's nothing to forgive if you haven't been wronged. So, you know, we just want to start from that posture of my life, my choices, my decision on how I choose to react, no matter how somebody's treated me. And then you got to figure out, what's the goal? Am I trying to reconcile with this person? If I'm not trying to reconcile with this person, then maybe I should just let it go and keep moving on with my life. Proverbs talks about how it's to a person's glory to overlook an offense, right? You can be offended and be glorious by overlooking that and forgiving that and moving on. So if you're trying to be reconciled to somebody, then, and there is a genuine, true transgression, you just got to talk about it. You got to talk about it without all this emotion built up and an accusation. You did this, you did that. Like, hey, level-headedly, when you said this in this way, it hurt my feelings because of X, Y, Z. If you can't have that level-headed conversation, you got to cool off some more. You got to process it, and then you just got to come back to it. You know, you can't be so eager to talk to somebody and prove to them that you're right that you drive the nail deeper. You know, if the goal is to be a peacemaker and reconciler, you got to be moving that ball that direction. Not everybody wants that, right? So they may not reciprocate, but that's why the Bible says, as far as it's up to you, live at peace with all people. Some things are outside of your control. Oh.
Yeah, and I know a struggle in when you're trying to forgive or move past a hurt is that oftentimes we aren't able to also still be emotionally honest with where we are. So like in that eagerness to forgive, and that eagerness to make, to bridge that gap, you're still dealing with hurt. And you're not being honest about that. Like I know in our relationship, Jazz and I, there have been times where like I might have done something wrong to her, she did something wrong to me. And I think you guys have all been there. And someone says like, "Are you okay?" And you just go, "Yeah, I'm good," right? But that's not the truth at all. You're actually hurting. And whether you're not able to talk about that at that moment, or you haven't really identified why you're hurting, either way, you're lying about what's going on. And when you do that, you oftentimes rob your friend or your partner the ability to be that person that you need them to be in that moment. And so I think that's a major, I know that's in my life, that's been a major key to be emotionally honest with where I am. Because once I know where I am and why I'm there, then I can say, okay, I'm here. This is where I want to be. I can best understand how to get to that point. But if I'm lying to myself or lying to you about what's really going on, then we're not really walking in the same direction. We're not even having the same conversation, So I think that's, for me, that's an important key.
I think I mean I agree obviously with what you said and basically what everything you said, Billy. I don't even know if I have anything new to add to what was said already, but just the whole idea that, when there's a conflict, like we're going to address this conflict as like the conflict itself, not like you did this to personally attack me, but like this is what happened. Like you said, these are my feelings about it. I don't know where that statement where I first heard that, but when you did this, I felt this way. I mean, that's like the best thing that you can do, in that thing. But making sure that the focus is on the situation itself and not like attacking the person is definitely great. Because once that person got their guard up, then the conversation is not productive anymore, So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have too much to add either. I think it's important to assess what your end goal is. Like if you're trying to have a conversation with this person, again, is it to attack them? Is it just to, vomit all of your feelings and emotions onto them? Or is your heart really for reconciliation and you're just trying to address what happened in a healthy way? So I think it's important to recognize that. And also, especially in a situation where someone really like hurt you or betrayed you, where it is maybe more so on their side, I think that it is like you can still extend forgiveness while still acknowledging your hurt and still processing the hurt that came from that. So those two don't have to be separate. Like you can have both feelings at the same time of like, yes, you release this person, yet you're still, processing through whatever it is that they've done. So I think that that's important to keep in mind as well.
Wow, that was so good. I think the very first thing is to figure out if it's a you issue or a them issue. Your emotions are your dealings. So you don't want to give that power up to anybody else. It's like you have the right to your emotions. So learn not to play a victim. And then how am I responding? Do I try to be reconciled with these people? Or if not, then try to move on. If so, have a conversation, a level-headed conversation, not just you putting people on I was going to say on blast, but and then I like the point about being emotionally honest, because it's so easy to fall into that space of, oh yeah, I'm trying to forgive this person, so I'm just going to bottle up my emotions and I'm just going to lie about how I truly feel. But then when, as you said, like if someone else is trying to help in that situation, it would just, it's like almost you guys are moving on two different paths. So yeah, always learn to be emotionally honest with yourself, and then address the conflict as a conflict and not just you trying to attack someone, because like you said, people will put their guard up once they feel attacked. And last is, what is your end goal? Recognize that before entering the situation. Are you going for reconciliation? What are you trying to achieve at the end of that? That'll make it easier for you stepping in, and acknowledge your hurt, process the hurt, and as well at the same time release that person. So that's great. That's great. Thank you guys. That was a lot of wise words that I'm probably going to keep forever. So the next set of questions we have are on dating relationships. So the first question is, what if all the people you're interested in dating are never interested in you? What should you do? Does this mean that your standards are too high? It's a deep one.
Yeah, you can go.
So it's hard to know if your standards are too high or not, because we don't know what the person's asking the standards are. But I firmly believe this, especially because we're Christians. I firmly believe that nothing that's not God's will in your life can happen, whether you try to will it or you try to run away from it. And if a certain relationship or thing that you tried to create did not work, then you can rest in knowing that that's a good thing, and not worrying about that there's something wrong with you or I missed the mark. You can't get away from God's will, and you can't, avoid it. It's you know what I mean? And so resting in that. And nothing. And so, yeah, I don't think you need to worry about, hey, this relationship didn't work, because I think a lot of people who are in great loving relationships will tell you that I've had many relationships in the past that didn't work, but here I am now in this one that is beautiful. And I think sometimes once we get into a moment, sometimes we can think that now is forever, and that's not the case. It's just this current moment.
For me, I kind of resent the part of the question where it's like, because I'm interested in these people and they're not interested in me, should I lower my standards? Is there something wrong with me? Like, why? I don't like that the mind kind of goes there. Like, why is there something wrong with me? It just, hey, we just want on the same page, but it doesn't mean that I have to.
Something wrong with you, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So I just don't come. I'm against that. I'm against that like that. But I don't know. I just think it's just, honestly, it's just not the right person, like you said. Like you said, basically. Yeah.
I agree with Jazz, honestly. I think it's just not the right people, not the right person that you, I think that we should learn from the people. Well, I guess in this situation, maybe it didn't go into like a dating relationship. It's just people that you're interested in. But I think that it shouldn't be a self-worth kind of thing. It's just like, hey, like similar to what we said in the previous questions of, there's going to be some people that you meet who aren't going to be your friends, therefore it's the same thing in a dating relationship as well, where, sometimes you just got to kiss a lot of frogs until you meet the right one.
I feel like I have to save somebody from kissing a frog then. Because some of y'all might have standards that are too high. Like, oh, I want them to be this tall. I want them to make this amount of money. They've got to be a bodybuilder. It's like, come on, who are we dating? Are we dating somebody you saw on Instagram? Is this like the amalgamation of your imagination? Like, come on. So
Billy with the
fortunately,
hard truths, always.
listen, it has to be said. It has to be said. Everybody's out here gassing people up like, no, don't lower your standards. Like, come on, you could be vain. Are we not going to entertain that thought that you could be vain? Like, come on, somebody, one person on this call has got to be vain out of 31 people. Come on, Jesus had a Judas out of 12, so there's probably a couple. But what I'm saying is that not Judas, so. But what I'm trying to say is that we went through clear criteria that are tried and true of somebody you should be looking for, right? I hope this is no longer up to just guesswork of what you should be looking for. Character, chemistry, calling, and then confirmation. We went through that. Notice that had nothing to do with eye color, bank account statements, right? Like, or height, or weight for that matter, right? We're talking about meaningful things that you can build a relationship on. And so I'm not coming for the women. No. It's just an example because I'm a man. So, of course I'm going to speak from a man's perspective. Brittany's trying to blow me up in the comments. You know what? I'm the panelist. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. So, guys do this all the time too. You want to date a supermodel. You saw somebody on TV. Guess what? That's not real life. It's behind a camera. And so this knife cuts both ways. So let's just be honest with ourselves and say that some people's standards are too high, but character and your principles should not be compromised, right? So I'm not encouraging compromise. I'm just saying, if you're vain, call it what it is, right? Let's not try to wrap virtue around vanity and pretend like we're looking for the right thing here. So, yeah.
No, that's a good point.
That's gonna save one person from heartache.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Because you're right. Some people do be having, in terms of like appearances, be way too much on appearances. You're right. Wasn't even thinking that way.
Yeah, I guess I didn't read the question like that, but that's some good nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, those were good. Says it's hard to know if your standards are too high, and if a relationship didn't work out, then know that's a good thing. Be comfortable and things not working out. Not everyone that you meet would be your friend. You cannot run or escape God's will. And then if you're not on the same page, don't lower your standards. And as Billy had refined for us, if you have good standards, no need to lower that. Just because things are not working out, it's okay. Move on. Someone who meets that standard will come eventually. And it should not be a self-worth thing. Not everyone, I wrote that. That was like comment for me. Not everyone who checks boxes will fill all of them. And some people's standards are too high. So if you have standards that are way too high and not following the principle, character, I was going to miss that. The 4 C's. If you have standards that are way too high, make sure to check them so that you're not or having people being put off just because they don't meet those standards. So the next question that we have on dating and relationships or dating relationships is, okay, so I think this is specifically for those who are married. For those of you who are married, how did you get to know each other without it feeling weird? In order to start to like each other more on more than friend level. So I think I could rephrase that. So like, how do you get to know each other without it being weird in order to start liking each other in a more than a friend level?
Listen, it was weird. I don't know why people assume, oh, it's not going to be weird. I mean, it's going to be weird. I mean, I saw this girl, I liked her, right? But I don't want to know like how much I liked it just yet. You know what I'm saying? Just in case you don't like me the same way. I think you got to get out of that, that weird, you got embrace the weirdness, it's okay for it to feel a little weird. I think what I try to focus more on is what are our commonalities? What are some things that we can build off of and then develop a friendship? For us, we met each other while both studying engineering. And so that was pretty easy. Hey, we had some of the same classes. Let's talk about some of these things together. And as we were doing those things that we already had in common, we're getting to know about each other, like your family or where do you live and what do you like, music, and all that type of stuff. And so you got something to say? I can tell
I
by the
think,
ex-
yeah, because I think that you just, and I also think that you just gotta put yourself out there. You gotta be willing to ask.
Hold on. She's saying that. She's saying it, but she didn't do that. She's saying that.
Yeah, I mean,
Tell the people, Dave. Tell the people. Come on. We got to keep it real.
She's saying that. Oh, you gotta put yourself out
I
there.
didn't put myself out there.
Let me say, so guys, the day that I knew that she liked me, and she probably knew I liked her too. Before, I didn't know that she was trying to muster up the courage to ask me for my phone number, right? And she would like walk away and then come back and walk. I'm like, yo, what's going on? But then I wanted to ask her for a phone number anyway. So I was like, hey, what's your phone number before you leave? And she's like, yes. And so she tells me her phone number is, and like here she is telling everybody else, you gotta be bold. You gotta
Listen, because I knew if I came home without your phone number, my mom was gonna clown me. She told me that.
But it's gonna be weird. But embrace that. It's part of the journey.
I mean, in terms of like getting to like once you were already established, okay, we're friends, we want this to become something more. I think you gotta go deeper. You gotta ask more, personal questions about outlooks on life, how you feel about this, how you feel about that, But sometimes people don't want to have those conversations because they don't want to, because it's awkward sometimes to start those conversations. So like that, in terms of that area, I'm saying you just gotta be willing to put yourself out there and have those conversations, and also be willing to accept their truth and what their answer is, because it might not be what you want to hear.
Right. And like be yourself. I feel like before I met Jazz, I was so worried about being this image, like this character that I had to be that maybe a woman would like or something. But I'm like, when I met Jazz, I'm like, oh, just me is good enough. Bet I'm gonna do more of that. And so just be yourself. Don't try to be someone else because they're gonna be like, wow, that's not the real you. Well, this relationship's over.
And just be honest where the relationship is, where you wanted to go. Like there was no guessing. It was like, do you like me? Do you want to be in a relationship with me? Like there wasn't any. So what are we? I mean, it
wasn't for me. I knew exactly what I wanted.
I'm just saying, he asked me, are you interested in me? Yes. And he told me he was interested in me. So just kind of like you gotta be forthcoming, forward. I don't know. What's the question again? Go on, Billy.
Honest. Come on. There we go. That was great. That's what the people want to hear. That's what you're here for. All this relationship advice, not to be engineering other people's relationships. Let's go. Yeah, I think, what was it? How to grow and not be weird, right? I think you guys hit the majority of it. Find what you have in common with people. That's how you build friendships anyway. As you start with the lowest common denominator. Hey, we're both in this space at the same time. Hey, we're both in the Zoom call. What's your name? And then you kind of build from there. Oh, we both study the same thing. Oh, what are you interested in? Start positive, right? Start with the passions, right? What people are interested in. Oh, you study this. What got you into that? Cool. What kind of music do you listen to? Easy stuff. And then build from there. Ask intentional questions. And I think especially, for guys, like, man, let's just be intentional. It is weird. You have to put yourself out there. You got to take a risk, and you're going to get shot down. Tough. It's part of the experience. So, there's no way to remove that risk of danger. So yeah. It's funny enough, Jazz, B and I have almost the exact same thing. She would walk into the other room every time I walked in my own house. She was trying to run away from me. I was like, no, I don't need this in my life. So I say one thing that I really wish I had said on the last question too, just to go back, is that, man, I'd rather do this thing solo than be with the wrong person. I think some of you guys got to get that into your heart. Like I know what I want. I know what I'm praying for, but the only thing worse than not being with somebody is being with the wrong person. And it can, a relationship can either be heaven on earth or hell on earth. And it really depends on who you're with. And so let's just aim at being whole in Christ, and then, coming to a relationship whole. And man, when you get two whole people together, then that's when things really take off. You realize you're never perfectly whole as you get you know, closer and closer, you see each other's faults, and then the right person is going to help you grow and heal. But yeah, I just wanted to add that as an addendum to the last question. In terms of getting to know people, just ask questions, man. Some people you won't have that spark with, and you're going to have to force it, and they're just not interested in you back. Save your time. Save your time, man. Like, it's just not worth it. If you feel like you have to push this boulder uphill every time you meet somebody, man, I wouldn't have time for that. So, you know, I don't know. I have a close buddy who basically he crawled his way out of the friend zone, and he's ended up married to his wife today. But he put in the work to get there. So
we heard that on your podcast. We have a friend who did the same thing though.
yeah,
I'm
same
saying this
thing.
for everybody. Everybody can't do it, all right? But
Not everybody has that grace, right, Jazz? Not everybody can get out of the friend zone.
See, the man had a vision and he worked hard to get it. But
Oh, bro, he worked towards it in a respectful way, but he won her heart, that's for sure.
But yeah, that's good. You know, I was about to go into preaching mode because I was like, let's say this just ties in perfectly with what we had said in the beginning. Embrace the awkwardness. Awkwardness is cool. I was gonna say that, but yeah, I think that was like the first and the biggest thing, you know. It's okay. It's gonna be weird, but you know, you with time, you get used to it, you find it, ask questions. It's better to be single than to be with the wrong person. So save your time, have that list. So I think we're coming down short on time. So I was just going to run through. Oh.
Let me real quick. I feel like I'm thinking of answers as you do the wrap up. Before you go to the next question, here's one that that could be helpful. Is just make it an easy ask. Like, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to catch up and do you want to study together, or do you want to go grab coffee? Or, you know, don't make it, if you're not sure how somebody else feels about you, you don't ask for, you know, hey, can I take you out to park and we're gonna have dinner on Rittenhouse together under the lights? You know, throw a lure out there. Figure out if this person is interested in you. If they are interested in you, they're going to respond positively. Like, oh yeah, I would love to. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, let's go for a hike, or let's go do something. So, you know, I do think that, you know, we're trying to jump from 0 to 100. We dreaming for too much, right? We had this pandemic, people got a lot of time to spend in their heads. So see it playing out perfectly. But, you know, I'd say start with something reasonable. If they don't reciprocate, if they never get back to you, that's the answer. Just tough it out, move on. But, you know, if the person likes you back, they'll say yeah, and then you'll kind of get that drift and you can build from there. So
Come on. So I think we have 2 minutes, but I wanted to chip in like 2 little questions. One question that I guess everyone could run through is, how do you tell how do you tell people that you aren't interested in a nice way, but while you're still trying to be friends?
that's for the ladies. Actually, psych. That's for me too. Oh. I know, Dave, you probably had proposals coming out the wazoo over here. Come on, Dave.
I come against that, Billy. Don't do that.
No. In your pre-marriage life, yeah.
Ain't no such thing. I don't even know what a pre-marriage life is.
I don't know. I can't. I mean, I'm just thinking about when people act like, I just say, this is hard because I'm thinking about where I am now, right? I'm married, right? So if someone, or even when we were dating or whatever, if someone asked me like, and they express interest, I'm just like, no, I'm all right. Thank you. But no, you know, I'm in a relationship, or I'm not really interested in doing anything. Like if you're in a relationship, then it's a little different because you got an excuse. If you're not in a relationship, then it's like, oh, and if you're in a relationship and someone wants to be friends with you, but they like you, like I'm not for the, well, yeah, we can just be friends. No, we can't, because you like, we can't be friends. But I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, I mean, we can be friends, we can hang out, but I'm not interested in dating you, but we can be friends, we can be cool. I don't know.
You
Go
don't
ahead,
need
Courtney.
the no friends club.
Yeah, man. I don't know if we can be friends after that. It's just a little awkward. I guess it's to each their own, but I feel like for me, I'd be questioning whether they have lingering feelings. So I just think it would be awkward for me, and the other person probably, possibly hoping that eventually I'll say yes. And so I just feel like, I don't know if we could be friends. So like, hey, I like to affirm people though. I'm like, hey, thank you so much for showing interest in me. Thank you for having courage to ask me. But I do want to be honest with you and let you know that I'm actually not interested, and keep just being honest, keeping it short and sweet and as affirming as you can. Because again, they did, step up to ask you, which is a big deal. So, yeah.
What have you been friends
I think
for a long time?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say just be honest with somebody. Like the truth will always win, and you can be kind even while you're honest. Just say, hey, I really appreciate our friendship. I just don't see you that way, and just keep it that way. Like, hey, this doesn't change anything about our friendship. I still care about you like that, but it's not you, it's me. Don't use that one. That one never goes over well. So, but yeah. I would say, yeah, I really appreciate our friendship, but I just don't see it going anywhere. Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of like has basically nailed it, especially and if it's a person who's been a friend for a long time. I do think though, once you know that the person likes you, you kind of have to do your best not to do things that may lead them on. So I think we've seen that example where someone is like kind of, I don't want to say using, but almost using the person, you know what I mean? To be that emotional support person, that boyfriend or girlfriend role, without actually being the boyfriend or girlfriend. So like, and it's not a good friend. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't do, if that person is your friend, you shouldn't do that. So yeah, I agree with what everyone said. And if you know someone likes you and they've expressed that to you, but you don't feel the same way you express that to them, don't do things that's going to make them think there's hope.
Yo, everybody out here trying to play people in the comments. It's all fun and games. You're trying to find love. I'm telling you, you reap what you sow. You reap it. Don't worry.
Yo, these comments though.
Yo, oh man. But I feel like it's all right here because a little bit of this we have to work out, right? We're in a Christian community and we want people to find love. So you're gonna ask somebody, you might ask somebody out, you might have feelings for somebody that doesn't have feelings for you. So how do you be a mature adult, right? It doesn't mean you have to listen, if you're a creep, get out of ENC. First get to Jesus and then get out of ENC and then figure it out. Talk to me if you're a creep. Right? We've had creeps and that's no bueno. We don't do that. Both guys and girls, no creeps allowed. Get right with God and then sort it out. But just be gracious. I think be kind. Treat somebody the way you want to be treated. I know revolutionary stuff. But you don't have to dip. It's not like you can't still hang out, be in the same group. It's life. It's part of life. So let's just be mature as we kind of navigate these things. Again, like we want you to win. So if you have questions, ask me or Cord or Britt or Dave or now the Felix twins, the couple over here. Come on, the power couple from the Lord. So let's ask them. Ask somebody. Typically a little bit of wisdom goes a long way when it comes to these things. So, my first question is someone says like, hey, what do I do if I like somebody? My first question is, well, do they like you? How do you know? Because sometimes we get in our heads and we set ourselves up for a little bit of disappointment. So you got to kind of keep your eyes focused on reality. So sometimes you don't know. That's somebody.
That's so good. Be honest. You can't just, if someone says, you have to speak your mind, say what you truly feel. And I kind of like how this kind of ties with what was mentioned earlier when it talks about friendship or conflict, where it's like figure out if it's a you issue or a them issue. Your emotions are your them. So even if you're on the rejecting side, don't let that beat you up. Don't get frustrated, don't get angry. Fix your emotions. Your emotions are your dealings. Don't let yourself be the victim in that situation. And also, I like the other part too, where it's if you are the person that someone likes, do your best not to do things that will be leading them on, because that's a dangerous space. Giving people false hope is very dangerous. So I see that there's like work to be done on both sides. But that's good. That's good. All right. I was told that I have extra 5 minutes, so I'm excited because we have some more questions. Okay, so the next question is, can, I guess this kind of ties with the other one. Can or should you be friends with someone you once had a relationship with?
Goodness, yes and no, right? Can you? Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if you and your partner have set boundaries, that person can respect your boundaries, and that partner also that has to also have to be friends with your current partner as well. Like there are ways where it can be, but I think oftentimes it may not be wise to, because it may put your partner's heart in a bad position where they may feel insecure or jealous, or even you may think, oh, I can never fall for this trap, right? And then now you're in an emotional affair or something like with that person again, where you're sharing secrets or bonds with that person that your spouse doesn't know about. So it's like, can it happen and be fruitful? Sure. But it might not be wise to do it.
Might not be worth it.
Worth it, right?
Is it worth it?
Right.
Yeah, is it worth it? Is that person going to respect your boundaries? Is it going to harm? Is your significant other going to feel some sort of way about it? Because if that's the case, if it's a no, they can't respect your boundaries, and your significant other going to feel some way, then no, that's the answer.
Right.
And move on.
And context matters too. Like if we're talking about, hey, you talked to this person like on spring break and that was your relationship, and that was, you know what I mean, versus someone that you were in a multi-year relationship with, like the context matters as well. And so being honest with how my gut reaction is usually to say no, because this is a new relationship. This is the relationship that actually matters right now. And anything that can harm that, maybe we shouldn't be messing around with that. But I also understand there's a context where, yeah, it can work as well.
Yeah, I would say I agree. I don't think it's wise, especially right after a breakup. I don't think that's wise because you're not giving space to heal from that. And so now you're kind of egging on this, what was a relationship, and those feelings are still there and you haven't processed them. So I think it's important to take time apart to process. For me, it's a hard no. I don't need that in my life. However, I agree with what Dave was saying. I think in some situations it can work, down the line, you both have grown, whatever it might be. Some people can maintain a friendship. Because I think even in terms of marriages where maybe there's been a divorce and maybe one partner or both partners have now remarried, and there's that element kind of a friendship that's there. But yeah, I think it can work, but I think similar to what Jazz was saying, is it really worth it? Is it worth those emotions and all of that?
Where's this going? That's my only question. Oh, you want to be friends now? Where's this going? That's all I want to know. So do you know where it's going? Do you know where you want this friendship to go? What is this person adding to your life? Are they just trying to win you back? Are they distracting you? Are they holding you back? It's like sometimes you got to ask those hard questions. So a lot of times the answer is no. because, hey man, we gave it our best shot, especially if it was a serious relationship. And it's just like, man, you know, it ends with hurt feelings. Even if you've healed and moved on, it's just like, you know, I want the best for you, but I'm going left and you're going right. And we're just not going to talk again. And it's not out of a place of bitterness, but it's just where we go. Are we going to hang out? Are we going to, no, come on, like, let's be real about this. So, I mean, maybe if you're like the scenario that Courtney brought up of like, you know, kids and divorce, something like that, then yeah, it gets a little bit easier as you get older and you get more mature. But you know, I'm not calling any of my ex-girlfriends. I'm happy. You know, like I don't need no new friends club, right? Like I don't need that. So especially because most of the time, if somebody's still trying to cultivate a deep friendship, unless you have had a strong friendship on the front end, it's because one person still has feelings. So that's why I say the question of like, where's this going? So you just got to ask the hard questions with this stuff. So I tend to lean no, unless, again, there are exceptions. I would say if you are mature and you're in a good Christian community, you can be friends. Just be mature about it. Be adults. Hey, we went out on a couple of dates. We dated for a month or two. Just realized we're different people. Fine, great. I want you to be happy, right? And that's the beauty of walking in purity, is you have no regrets. Man, I honored you. I treated you well. I treated you with respect, and I added value to your life. And so, great. You know, you and I are not called to walk together for life. High five. Now, I'm going to be a champion for you in prayer, and I want to encourage you to go live your calling after God. And that's a great and mature place to be if both people are there. So, but it's just rare for two people to be mature. Is probably the best way to put it.
An added question to this. So what if in the case the person is your youth pastor, your ex is your youth pastor? What do you do in that kind of case or scenarios like that?
What in the world? You got something to tell us, Billy?
You got anything to tell us, Courtney?
Don't play me.
I need to know what the situation is for that anyway, because, all right, youth pastors are great, right? But I'm so confused. That's like a curveball. Like, why?
You got a real specific question there.
Right. Why do you still have to?
What the youth pastor?
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is a
ask that
target.
question again.
All right. I think it'll make it more relatable. What if it is someone that I guess is in a place of functionality? Is that the right word? And like you can't pretty much my head is getting lost for words, but you can't pretty much avoid the person. And you have to be in the same space with the person. So like, what do you do in those kind of scenarios where you can't like distance from that person?
Okay. First of all, I'm just going to say that I feel like this type of relationship is inappropriate. Yes. But like there's scenarios that happen like this. You know, I've seen them. So, but I'm just going to say that. However, I think that it's important to have a conversation, you know, and say like, hey, we both go to the same church. We're going to see each other. Let's establish some boundaries. And just, yeah, like this is what it is. You know, I think it's just important to be honest and to address it head on and to still be cordial. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents. I don't know if any of y'all have anything else to say.
Yeah, I'll weigh in on that. So as a spiritual leader, there's a dynamic of authority, right? The scripture does speak of authority being given to those who are leaders. So there is and you know, I'm typically thinking of a youth pastor or a youth leader typically being a guy. And so I just want to say, like, You know, if that's not a place where you can grow spiritually, you know, we have rank order, right? Our first priority is to God. And so if you need to move to a different place to really grow with God as you move on from that relationship, you really need to weigh that. If that person doesn't steward their spiritual authority well, which they do have, right? If you are a pastor or a campus minister, you have spiritual authority delegated to you by God. And so if there's any, you know, a scent of misuse or, you know, sleight of hand, or you feel slighted, you know, you just got to be really sensitive to that. So it really comes down to the character of the individual. I say, you know, if they're a righteous person, if they got their heart right before God, that scenario could work. You know, because you could be if you're mature, but because you can hear the message past the person. But you know, it is a little bit of a sticky situation. So, because the reality is, in that church, you have more relationships than just that individual, right? So now, what are you going to do? Cut all the relationships that God has placed in your life? Some of those are going to be really valuable. Those are people that God has called you to walk with. So you really have to weigh all those things before you decide, make that final decision. So.
I don't have anything to add on that. That's good.
Okay. What do you say, Dave?
So I don't have anything to add on that. That's
okay. Okay. Bill, I think like the very last thing that you said, kind of like it stuck out to me a lot, where it's like, do not misuse spiritual authority, because you know, if someone is being petty on the altar, like, what are you doing, bro? Like, do not do that. Do not do that. Yeah. So the next question is again for the married people. Now that you are married, when you look back on your time as a single person, what things did you do that helped to prepare you for marriage? What advice would you give to a single version of you for what they should and shouldn't focus on? It's a big question.
I have some, I guess maybe some strong feelings on this. So I think that like if you're single and you're not in a relationship, I think that you shouldn't necessarily be focusing on how to prepare for marriage. I think that you should be focusing on how to become a better disciple, how to love God better, because ultimately that's what's going to help you become a better person, become a better Christian, and in turn become a better spouse eventually, if that happens. And I think that if you are, you know, if you're not in a relationship, then you shouldn't be trying to prep for marriage. Just gives marriage this space of like an idol in your life, right? Because who knows, it might not be in the cards for a long time, or maybe ever, who knows. So I think you need to just learn how to love God more and be content with you and God, and just grow in that area. I think for me personally, that's where I wish I was better at. I mean, Dave and I started dating early on in my college life, so I wasn't really single for very long. But even when you're dating, you're classified as single still in my mind. So even in that area, now I wish I was focusing on God still more and being a better Christian during that time as well. And I think if you guys are dating, then, well, if you're dating, then I think that you should be just, the best practice for marriage is just working on things like compromise, working on things like being better at forgiving people, learning how to communicate and articulate your feelings better, those type of things that are going to help you in any relationship, not just specific to marriage in general. And then like, and you know, other stuff, just interacting better. And then once you guys are like engaged and actually know that you are headed towards marriage and not just getting to know each other, to me, that's when you start doing more of like the hard work in terms of really focusing on like, okay, this is what you said it means to be respected as man or as head of household. So what does that look like practically in our, daily lives or things like that, getting more into the nitty gritty. But I think there's different levels to it. So single, no prospects, just focus on God, dating, working on those basically core skills that you need in any relationship. And then once you guys decide that we're going to do this, then that's when all the hard work, that's when more of the work, specific work for actually your marriage life will come in.
You see why I made it, right? What more do I gotta say?
Yeah. Yeah. Dave, you want to add anything on that? Are you good?
No, I mean that honestly, that's perfect. I mean, you covered everything. I mean, we were so young, and something that we think about when we reflect back is we don't even know who we would have been because we kind of grew into ourselves together at the same time. I think for me though, one thing that I do want to add in terms of like the men's perspective that I think oftentimes men don't do often is listen to women. Oftentimes women are telling us about, hey, when you do this, it affects us in this way. And we are so resistant to listening to that. And I think for me, there was so much growth that there was so much growth that happened in my life when I stopped receiving messages that were abrasive or tough for me to listen to, and actually reflect on myself and say, wow, in a lot of ways, I've internalized a lot of filth, and I'm moving in this, as opposed. And then once I began to do that work, then I became a better listener. A better at understanding her, better at forgiving, being eager to forgive, being more gracious, and understanding that in a lot of ways, I was trash. You know what I mean? Like honestly, that. And then doing that work just made me a better individual. And I would hope that if I wasn't with Jazz, I would have still been eager to do that work. But I know oftentimes guys are very resistive to doing that work because oftentimes the messaging may be blunt, but it's still true.
I hope you guys are taking notes because that was gold. Yeah, I mean, learning how to listen. Most people don't know how to listen, especially guys. So yeah, definitely learning how to listen. I think, we tend to think of like love, the pinnacle of love in the context of marriage. It's actually not. It's in our relationship with God, right? Agape is the highest form of love. So when we talk about the highest forms of love in the scripture, that highest form of love is from God to us, that we are to reflect to this world. So if we focus on being a disciple and really loving our neighbor as ourselves, then you're going to walk in the footsteps of Christ. You know how much easier it's going to be to relate to you. And so I think as you just focus on loving like Jesus, being like Jesus, then, that has massive ripples into all of life. And one of the many 10,000 things it makes you better at is relating to other people. So pursue Christ, run after Christ, live with the character of Christ, bear fruit, right? Learn that love, the 1 Corinthians 13, right? The whole passage on love. That's not about romantic love. That's about church love, how we're supposed to love each other in the church. So, are you loving your neighbor on Zoom like that, right? If you're not, you're not being a very good Christian, I'll be honest. So, and then Dave, what you said about most guys not knowing how to listen to women, that is 110% correct. So that's why I'm big on asking questions. That's the best way to learn how to listen. Listen to people's emotions. They'll tell you, right? They'll tell you exactly how they're feeling if you just ask and shut up. So I like this analogy. We haven't talked about it yet. And, you're not incomplete if you're single. We just always got to say that. It has to be said 1,000 times. Again, like when my perspective, when I met Bianca and before we started dating, is like, listen, I know what God put me on this planet for. I'm running after God. Like I'll find my wife when I find my wife. I'm not like, it's just going to happen. And, I had to be intentional. I had to know what I was looking for. I had to clarify some things, but so those 4 C's that we talk about, that was my framework for understanding. And so it bears the test of time and of wisdom. But, you know, geez Louise, I'm on this planet for a limited amount of time. I'm running after God. And if I find somebody running next to me, then that's the kind of person that I want to live my life with. I'm not searching under rocks. I'm not kissing frogs. Like I'm looking for people that are running with me. And if you're not running with me, you're going to slow me down. And I'm called by God. So bet, you know, like I would rather live single for the rest of my life and live in my calling than compromise the call that God has put on my life to bind myself to somebody who's going to be a chain. You know, some of us are so eager to be in a relationship, you're going to disobey God. That's a fearful thing. So don't do that, right? Pursue God. And just don't compromise your calling. You know, that's why calling's on the list of non-negotiables. You know, my wife and I share a similar calling, and I had been in failed relationships because other people didn't have that same calling. So I learned my lesson. So you can either learn your lesson the hard way, or you can receive from our wisdom. So that's the best thing I got.
It's good. That was good. I think like the very first thing, did not try to make marriage an idol. It's easy to fall into that. Sure, it's like, oh, I'm thinking about this, then it becomes an idol in your life. And man, in your singleness, learn to be content with just you and God, you know, growing that relationship with God. And prepping for marriage, man, as you heard, as Dave said, learn to listen. Learn to listen. I'm gonna take down my notes to learn to listen. So we're rounding up, and we're coming to the next question. And I know Courtney has been silent for some time, but I'm sure she'll be able to answer this question for us. The next question is, this is a question on singleness. For the for the single person, do you ever struggle with feeling content as a single person? And it seems like all my friends are in a relationship, and I struggle with feeling jealous or at times resentful for those who are in a relationship. So how can I be patient in the waiting?
Yeah, this is great. And I think it ties really well with what Billy just said. I think, like, yes, I definitely have had moments where I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to be in a relationship. I think it's important to acknowledge that. Again, I mentioned that when me and Billy were talking about healthy dating a few weeks back, that it's okay to acknowledge that that's a desire that you have. I think it's important too, because with the context of that question, it talked about your surroundings, like you're around people who are in relationships. And I think it's important to recognize, what is that kind of internal conflict coming from? Like, is it being stirred up because that's like an actual desire? Or is it because of, again, the people you're around that are making you think this way, making you think that you're missing out on something or that you want that? And Paul talks about how singleness is a gift, just as marriage is a gift. And so I think it's important that we don't, if this is a gift that God freely gives to us, why are we so eager to throw it away, you know, and to try and take another gift that's not, we're just trying to go past this season that we're in. And so I just think that it's really important to recognize that, yeah, Lord, I have a desire for marriage. I want to be in a relationship, but exactly what Billy said, like, I have my purpose, I have my calling. And I think it's important to ask those questions of, okay, God, what do you have me doing right now? You know, what are my responsibilities now? How can I grow as a disciple? How can I have godly character? You know, how can I build these things? How can I be a good friend? Because oftentimes, you know, friendships can suffer, and you're in this mindset of, I want to be in a relationship, but I'm like, well, are your friendships around you even healthy? Because a good foundation for a marriage is that friendship. And so I just think that it's important that we need to recognize, okay, yes, I have this desire in my heart, but am I actually ready for that? You know, am I aligned with God's will, or am I kind of just, I think what the question was saying, like resentful and bitter. I think what helps with that, because I've been in those positions where sometimes you're on Instagram and then every single one is like a proposal. Someone just got married, just had a baby. And I'm like, what is going on? You know, but And it can cause you to have those questions like, oh, should I be in that spot? Like, should I be in a relationship? But I think what's helped me is to just celebrate those people, take captive of those thoughts of, when the resentment comes in or the bitterness comes in, and say like, you know what, God bless them. I'm so grateful for this season that they're in. And listen, I know there's that saying of like, God, you did it for them, you can do it for me, and keep it pushing. I think stay purposeful. And I think it's a great invitation to ask God in those moments where you're, seeking a relationship or desiring a relationship, to ask, okay, God, what can I do right now? How can I grow in the calling that you've given me? So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, just to add to that, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And jealousy makes everything taste bitter, right? If you're harboring jealousy in your life and envy over anything, right, then no matter what you get, you're always going to, your prayers will turn into, yeah, but God, I still don't have this, I still don't have that. And so you never actually open your heart to receive from God. And, God's not stingy, right? God pours out into our life with abundance. And so when we live with jealousy, we actually close our lives off from God's blessing. And so, jealousy is sin. I think we should just call it that, and because that's what it is. So if you have jealousy in your heart, then you really gotta, root it out. And at the heart of jealousy is that God's holding out on me. He doesn't want the best for me. And that's exactly what the snake said to Eve in the garden, right? That God doesn't want you to be like him. He doesn't want you to be happy. And so we just got to really examine our hearts and say, hey, I have a legitimate desire that's expressing itself illegitimately, and I need to take ownership of that. And so, yeah. And then, guys, again, like, singleness is not a bad thing. Like, Jesus never got married. He was perfectly happy, right? He shaped the world. Paul never got married, shaped the world. Some of the people that I know right now are the people that are having the most impact in the kingdom of God are single women, right? And so why are we limiting God in what God can do through as a relationship status? This is our culture's idol. It's a legitimate desire of our heart, and it's our culture's idol. We talked about that last week, where sexuality, we view it as a savior, right? If I can just have this, then it's going to save me from my loneliness. No, that's not the gospel. And so I just want to say, like, you're so free right now. Your life is never going to be this simple.
Really.
Come on, Jazz. Like, we gotta tell them. You are so free. I don't even have a kid. That's why Jazz and Dave are here. They have a 1-year-old right now. And so, like, it's just, you can do anything. Barring Corona, you could get on a plane tomorrow and go to Timbuktu and become a missionary. You could. No, I mean, as long as you have the money and the passport, you're good. And so there's nothing hindering you from being free to live the call of God out. I did that, right? I packed up my whole life in 2 suitcases and moved to another country because I was free. Nobody would stop me. And then I could get on a plane and go to another country and another country from there. And because God had called me to go do something. Now, if I'm home an hour late, I got to be texting Bianca because, hey, this ministry thing is going longer than I expected. Right?
Sorry.
And so...
Oh, Dave, that's good. That's good.
There we go. Dave knows, man. You want the real talk. Talk to Dave. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just important for us to realize, like, what is this time for? Like, you have purpose, right? Shout out to my own podcast, inspiring people to live with eternal purpose every day, right? So you have an eternal purpose that God has placed on your life today, and you need to find that and walk in that. And that's the greatest joy you can ever have, man. Who's going to Cape Town, right? It's just gonna be, there's so much joy you can have and just living for God. Like, let's not place limits on him and just embrace this freedom. Like, you're never gonna be as free as you are now. Life gets more complicated. You get more bills. It's more, and there's benefits of that, but enjoy it. Jazz, go Jazz.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, Paul says it, like, talking about how, having a spouse or having kids, that takes you, those are things that you have to spend time on. You have to, you're called to, if you're in that position, and it takes time from God, honestly, it really does. And you're constantly juggling or making sure that you still stay focused, but you still have earthly responsibilities that you are tied to. Some people, like if you're single, you wake up, your mornings are yours. Out if you got work, right? But like your mornings are yours. You can say, oh, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna pray with God, I'm gonna read my word and pray and all this for hours. I can't do that. I wake up, my Josiah, he wants to be all banging on my head, jumping on me. He wants breakfast. I gotta make him breakfast. Dave gotta get ready for work. So it's just like a bunch of things that you you gotta do. And you're right. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to not spend time with God, but it's just saying that you do have responsibilities that you have to take care of, and that you're called to take care of. I'm called to be a good mom to Josiah. I'm called to be a good wife to Dave, from God. And so I have to do those things. And also I have to make sure I'm still, spending time with God. But like I said, you're not as free. You can't just pick up and move. I got bills, got a son. I can't just go be a missionary in Tanzania or something, because I can't take my whole family with me. I got bills. I got to make sure it's just a lot. It's a lot.
And I feel like it's important when you have this understanding that you share that perspective with others.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like on Instagram, if you go and you see all these people sharing their families and stuff, it's because they love their families. They want to share that experience. And I think, if you are in singleness and you are loving it, you're serving God in it, you should share that as well, because it's so encouraging when you're in something and you hear someone else is in that same thing and they're embracing it and they're enjoying that. And I think oftentimes people feel isolated because they don't hear what Billy just said. And you might have that, you might be feeling that, but they don't know that, and they feel like, man, I'm incomplete. But you're like, no, you're not actually. And I think when people begin to share that more and more, then we can dispel this myth that like marriage saves you, or marriage is the ultimate glory. And now we can get back to what the ultimate glory is, and it's God, serving Him and glorifying Him. So
yeah, I think it's something I've been reading on, guys, is that God, this stage of life that all of you are at, and I can personally testify to this, it's the stage where God lays the foundation of decades to come. So what God speaks to you when you're in late teens, early 20s, if you really are pursuing God, He'll speak to you about things that will take decades to fulfill. He will lay the foundations of lifelong callings. And there will be things that, if you're really serious now in pursuing the Lord, then it's going to be a wild and awesome ride. Get ready. Like, I know life is boring and monotonous behind Zoom, but do we have faith during the season? Do we approach God with faith every day? And so, God spoke to me when I was just when I was just living in college, and I'm just crying out to God, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm trying to follow you. I'm trying to obey your word. And man, he transformed me. I feel like I've been 5 different Billies since I got saved. And because God has changed my character so much. And so this is the most crucial time of your life, right? Yeah, the Billy with the curly hair. That was my third life. But like this is honestly the most crucial time in your life, because it sets the trajectory. So make no mistake, if you waste this time, you're playing catch up. So don't waste it. Make the most of your life. Make the most of this time. Seek God. Get on your face before Him. Cry out for the Holy Spirit, and ask for that divine calling and that revelation. So, because that's what set me up to know who was the right person. I'll tell you, right? I could look through a crowd of people, say, you're attractive, we get along really well, but I know what God has called me to do. And so you're not the right person for me, because I knew who I was and I knew what God had called me to. And there was, some legwork for that. Yeah. I used to have really curly hair. We can get on Facebook. So yeah, I just want to encourage you guys, you're not missing out. It's just different, right? It's just, and everybody's called to something different. So again, if you think God is stingy, you'll never have faith. I just can't say that enough. So God's not holding out on you.
Come on, come on. I like how this one question just turned into a whole talk about embracing singleness and knowing the worth in it. And that's good, you know. I think from the very first thing that Courtney had mentioned, who are you surrounding yourself with? You know, is this a genuine desire that you have in your heart, or do you have yourself surrounded by people who make you feel like you're missing out? So it's important to check that when it comes with feeling resentful in your heart. And a good foundation for a marriage is a stable friendship. So be able to manage friendships well, and that'll be a great foundation for a stable marriage. So are your friendships looking good when you're trying, or have your head in the clouds trying to get into marriage? Celebrate those people instead of getting jealous. Celebrate them and stay purposeful. What can you do right now? What is the Lord calling you to right now? Have your vision on that. God is not stingy. You know, he wouldn't hold back a good price from you, or a good gift from his children. And then, yeah, you know, being in a relationship is, or being in marriage is busy, and it requires a lot. So enjoy the singleness while you can, because do not throw away this gift for another gift, like what we had mentioned. You know, marriage is a gift, singleness is equally a gift. And what is the Lord giving you in this season? What are the things that he's giving, equipping you in this season? Are you throwing that away because of your foresight, or you're trying to see or envision or feel like you're missing out in relationships? So the Lord has gifts in every season. So that was good. That was so good. That was really good. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave and Jasmine. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. That was so good. I love that this is recorded, so we can always go back and hear some beautiful words of wisdom from our wonderful speakers today, our panelists today. So I know we're a little bit shortened of time, but I wanted to run through some quick announcements that we had. So we have three things coming up. So the Building Fund. So there is a matching gift of up to 5,000 towards Freedom Church's new building. So I would like to encourage everyone to pray and to give. So we already have a pledge of 2,179.35. Come on, that's good. Almost 5,000. So give whatever the Lord places on your heart to give. You know, don't give too much as well, or more than what you can afford, because remember, you're students. So whatever the Lord places on your heart to give, so that we can see that vision come to mind, and we can see the Lord carry that vision to come. So the next announcement is Evangelism Training. So on Sunday, March 28th, from 1 p.m. to 2:15, we're learning more about how to share a testimony and effectively share the gospel with others. So if you have a hard time knowing how to evangelize, or you still have questions, or when it comes to evangelism, are there things that still hold you or keep you stuck, that will be a great place for you to equip yourself and do some training to get out there to share the gospel with people. Because, you know, it is one thing for you to have the zeal, and it's another thing for you to have the training that is required to steer that zeal well. And that's why you have some people who have the zeal, but not the right training, and then they just go out there making a mess with the gospel. So it's important to have that training and know how to navigate all those kind of conversations. And the last announcement that we have is Cornerstone. And every time I think of Cornerstone, I remember Gabby. I don't know. I think she's like the first person that I associate with Cornerstone, but Cornerstone is coming up this summer. It's a great way to learn more about the Bible and build relationships with other students in the region. And as she said, go to Cornerstone. It's going to be lit. I hope to be able to make it this time. There are links in the chat for all those things. So please click on those links and do them as needed. So we're just going to go into breakout rooms quickly. And the discussion question has been put in the chat. What is your biggest takeaway from tonight's session, and how will you apply it in your life? So thank you everyone for joining us today. Once again, thank you, Dave and Jasmine, for joining us today. It was a great panel, and I hope to see you guys next week. And I hope you guys have a great weekend.